Chapter 2. When they got on the highway, Katie drove extremely fast. Joe put his hand on her arm and said, "I understand you are concerned about your friend, but if we get into an accident, we won't be able to help her." Katie looked at Joe and then at her speedometer, which read 95. She let up on the gas and slowed to 75. "I'm sorry, Joe. I'm just so worried we won't make it in time." "I know you are, but there is only so much we can do right now. Your main concern should be getting us there safely and not getting pulled over by the police." "You're right. I just don't want the day I learned about our baby to be a tragic day. I need you to tell me a story to distract me." "A story? What kind of story?" "I don't know. Just tell me something interesting from your past that you haven't told me before." "Okay, let me think. Oh, I know. After the war ended, I went to California to shoot Yosemite National Park. I think it was 1946. Anyway, I ran into Ansel Adams in the hotel where I was staying." "Ansel Adams? You mean the photographer?" "The very one. So you heard of him?" "Of course. Who hasn't?" "I don't know. As a photographer, I knew him because of his prominence in my field, but I wasn't aware he was popular with non-photographers." "Well, Joe, just because you are older than my grandfather doesn't mean I can't teach you a thing or two." "I have learned a lot since meeting you, Katie." "Oh yeah? What have you learned?" "I learned where your ticklish spots are," Joe said. "Which I hate, by the way." "What else did you learn?" "I learned the most important lesson in my life." Katie looked at him thoughtfully and said, "I assume you are talking about healing others." "If it wasn't for you getting yourself blown up, I might never have figured it out." "I'm so glad I could help," Katie said sarcastically. "It's not every day something good comes from getting blown up. Besides, you got yourself blown up too." "I would never recommend that, but it turned out well for us. I told you that fate would intervene and find a way to keep us together. That apartment exploding was the best thing that could have happened to us." "It seems fate has a twisted sense of humor," Katie said. "It worked out well for everyone except the McKays. We ended up together, and David received money from both the insurance company and the developer, which enabled him to help his tenants settle into new apartments. And we are now married with a baby on the way." "Don't forget about that," Katie said. Katie started to cry. Joe put his hand on her arm and asked, "What's wrong? This should be a happy day, and I want to be happy. But how can I, with Ashley in the hospital about to die?" "Don't answer that. Just finish your story about Ansel Adams." "Okay, well, I was checking into my hotel and saw him walk by. A bellhop was helping him with his camera equipment. I recognized him and told him I was also a photographer. He was busy, but we arranged to meet later that evening to talk about photography." "Bellhop? I haven't heard that word in a long time." "Back then, he was a bellhop. Today, I guess you would call him a porter. If he's still around, I doubt he carries people's luggage. I'm glad you haven't lost your sense of humor. Anyway, we met that evening and had a great conversation. I learned a lot from him. He was a pioneer in the field and a really nice guy." "That sounds like a good memory," Katie said as she looked at her gas gauge. "I'm not sure if we have enough gas to get there." Joe glanced at the gauge and said, "Every car I ever had still had plenty of gas after the gauge said empty. That was years ago, Joe. I'm not sure it works that way anymore." "It's up to you if you want to stop, but I think pushing on is worth the risk." Katie decided Joe was right, and 30 minutes later, they pulled into the hospital parking lot with the gas gauge reading slightly below empty. "I'm so glad we didn't stop," Katie said as they exited the car. They hurried inside and asked where they could find Ashley Taylor. The woman at the information desk directed them to room 406. They rushed to the elevator and waited. They waited some more. Katie looked at her watch. Why did the damn elevator have to be so slow at a time like this? Finally, it opened and they got in. Katie pressed the button for the 4th floor and then pressed the close button several times before the door finally closed. It started moving up, but stopped on the 2nd floor. The doors opened and a nurse got in. She hit the button for the 3rd floor and Katie sighed heavily, which got her a dirty look from the nurse. They raced to find Ashley's room when the elevator door opened on the 4th floor. Her husband, John, stood outside the room with their 2 kids. The older child, a boy, was about 10 years old, and the younger child, a girl, was about 7. A well-dressed middle-aged man of about 50 stood beside them while John signed something on a clipboard and handed it to the man. Katie waited until he left, hugged John, and said, "We came as soon as we heard. How is she?" John said softly, "The priest from Virginia's church is delivering the last rites. I didn't want the kids to see that. We hardly ever go to church anymore, which I regret now. Maybe this is punishment." Katie held his hands and said, "You are not being punished. Don't think like that. You must have faith." "I wish I could, Katie, but I need to face reality. It's not over yet. I believe she will recover." "I like your optimism, Katie, but optimism won't help her now." "It seems like a bad time to be bothering you with paperwork," Joe said. "That was the hospital administrator. I gave him permission to donate Ashley's organs. I think she would want that." The door opened and the priest came out. He spoke to John while Joe and Katie slipped into the room. Ashley's father was sitting by her side, tears running down his face. Katie hugged him and said, "Don't worry, Henry. I am confident she will pull through. If I lose her, I don't think I could go on. You won't lose her, I promise. Ashley is lucky to have friends like you, Katie." "Do you mind if we spend some time alone with her?" Henry nodded and stood up. "Take all the time you need," he said before leaving the room. Joe sat where Ashley's father had been sitting and put his hand on Ashley's hand. Katie sat in a chair on the other side and held her other hand. Joe concentrated for about 15 seconds before saying, "She has extensive damage to her liver and one of her kidneys. It looks like the surgeons removed most of the bullet fragments, but some remain. They probably couldn't get to them without causing more harm." "Can you fix the damage?" Katie asked. "Yes, but it will take time. I'm not sure how long we can stay here before people start wondering what we're doing. You just get started, and we'll worry about that when it becomes a problem." Joe started with the bullet fragments. He instructed Ashley's body to push them away to an area where they wouldn't be a problem. He then concentrated on repairing the damage. After 10 minutes, the door opened, and John entered with the kids. Katie looked up and said, "We are praying. I did a lot of praying when they brought her in. Hopefully, it will work better for you." "Maybe we should all pray together," Katie said, hoping to give Joe more time to work. "That's a good idea," John said, motioning for his children to come closer. They held hands and were silent for about 5 minutes before the kids started to get antsy. Joe let go of Ashley's hand and said to Katie, "I think we should give the kids some time with their mom." He motioned for Katie to follow him, and they left the room. When Katie closed the door, she said, "What happened in there?" "I was able to get her out of danger, but there's more work to do. She will be okay for now." Katie hugged Joe, kissed him, and said, "I love you so much. Do you think we can get something to eat now? I'm starving." "You read my mind," Joe said. Waiting for the elevator was again a painstakingly long process. When the doors finally opened, Gabe Garcia stepped out. "Katie, Joe, it's good to see you again," he said. "It's good to see you too, Gabe," Katie said. "I just wish it were under better circumstances." "Me too. How is Ashley?" "She'll be fine," Joe said. "Really, I was under the impression she was near death." "Sometimes miracles happen," Joe said. "I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I thought the same thing about you 3 months ago, and look at you now. I mean, who gets hit by a car and then blown up and comes out without a scratch?" "I guess I'm lucky," Joe said. "Seems more like divine intervention if you ask me." "We were heading out to get some dinner," Katie said. "Would you like to join us?" "Sure. I could go for a bite to eat right now. If you like German food, there's a great restaurant about 2 blocks from here." "I know the place," Katie said. "We'll meet you there, but we have to stop for gas first." 15 minutes later, they pulled into the parking lot of Das Bayerish's house. Gabe arrived before them, and Katie parked next to his car. When they went inside, a pretty young woman wearing a dirndl designed to show off plenty of cleavage led them to a table near the bar. She set menus in front of them and said, "Your server will be with you shortly." Katie looked at Gabe and said, "I see why you like this place." "Hey, I'm a happily married man." "Sure, but a little eye candy never hurt anybody, right?" "You said that, not me. I will deny it under interrogation." They all laughed as their server came to their table. She was even prettier than the first girl. "Good evening, my name is Hannah. Can I get you started with a drink?" "Bring us 3 Warsteiners, please," Gabe said. He looked at Katie and Joe and said, "I'm buying. You can't go to a German restaurant without getting a beer." When the woman turned to leave, Katie put her hand in front of Joe's eyes and said, "Nothing to see here." Joe laughed and said, "Please, you are the prettiest girl in the room." "You two need to get a room," Gabe said. "We do need to get a room," Joe said. "We left home in such a hurry that we didn't think about a hotel. Our oldest is away at college. You can use his room. I'm sure my wife wouldn't mind." "That is very nice of you, Gabe," Katie said. "But we are newlyweds." "Say no more," Gabe said. "There's a Hilton not too far from the hospital." "Good idea," Katie said. "We want to be close to Ashley." The server came back and set the beers on the table. After everyone ordered and she left, Gabe asked, "Do you really believe that Ashley will recover?" "I know she will," Joe said. "How do you know?" "That is hard to explain, but take my word for it." Gabe looked at him momentarily and said, "What does her husband believe?" Katie interjected, saying, "John will be pleasantly surprised tomorrow morning." "I hope you are right," Gabe said. "By the way, Gabe, congratulations on your promotion to captain," Katie said. "Did you come to the hospital as a friend, or are you on the case?" "Both," Gabe said. "I am investigating this personally." "What have you learned so far?" Beth asked. "Not much. Ashley went to visit her mother at work. Her mom works at social services. Someone shot them outside in the parking lot near Ashley's car." "Are there cameras there?" Joe asked. "Unfortunately, not in the parking lot. We got footage from a couple of cameras inside the building, but nothing useful was on them." "Can you get us a copy?" Katie asked. Gabe looked at her and said, "You're no longer an investigative reporter, Katie." "Ashley is my friend. I want to help any way I can." Gabe sighed and said, "I suppose nothing I say will change your mind, so I will only ask that you share any information you learn." "Just like old times," Katie said. After dinner, Gabe returned to the hospital to speak with John, while Joe and Katie drove to the hotel. They got a nice room on the 4th floor overlooking the city. After bringing their stuff to the room, Joe said, "It's getting late. We may be able to get some alone time with Ashley." "I agree. Let's go." Ashley's father, husband, and their kids were still there when Joe and Katie arrived at the hospital. When John saw them, he said, "You were right. The doctor said Ashley is stable. He said he's never seen anything like it. It's a miracle. I mean, she's not out of the woods yet, but there's hope now. Maybe I underestimated the power of prayer." "It's getting late," Katie said. "You guys should go home and get some rest. We'll stay with Ashley for a while." "That's probably a good idea," John said. "The kids are getting tired." "Go," Katie said. "I'll call you if there is any change." They exchanged numbers, and John left with Henry and the kids. Joe and Katie sat next to Ashley as before and held her hands. Joe concentrated on healing Ashley, and Katie sat quietly, thinking about all the good times she spent with her friend. After 45 minutes, a nurse entered the room and said, "Visiting hours are over." "Please," Katie said. "Give us a little more time." The nurse looked at her watch and said, "Okay, I can pretend I didn't see you, but you need to be out in 30 minutes. "Okay, we will be gone before then," Katie said. "Thank you." After 25 minutes, Katie looked at her watch and said, "Okay, Joe, we need to leave." Just then, Ashley's eyes opened. She took a deep breath, looked at Joe and said, "Oh my God." Joe let go of Ashley's hand and she said, "I felt you. I felt me. I don't know what I felt." Katie stood up, hugged her friend and said, "It's all right, Ashley. It's nothing to worry about. I'm so happy you are okay." Ashley looked around and said, "Where am I? What happened?" She then looked at Joe and said, "What are you?" Joe looked at Katie, who said, "Joe has a special ability. He is a healer." "A healer?" Ashley asked, confused. "Yes, he has the ability to heal others. Do you remember when that apartment exploded and Joe was hurt so much more than I was? The truth is, I was hurt even worse than he was, but he used his healing abilities on me instead of himself." Ashley looked at Joe and said, "That's right. You went from near death to perfectly fine in less than a week." "I could have recovered in a couple of days, but that would have drawn too much attention to me," Joe said. Also, when I hit him with my car, it was worse than I let on, Katie said. I thought he might die, but he was fine later the next day. I thought it was strange that he broke your windshield and didn't get hurt. Now that you know, Ashley, I'd like you not to tell anyone, Joe said. If word got out, my life would never be normal again. She looked at Katie, who nodded. She looked back at Joe and said, I'll keep your secret, but I don't understand any of this. Why am I in the hospital? What happened to me? The nurse returned to the room and noticed Ashley was awake. Oh my, she said. You're awake. How is this possible? You were given last rites just a few hours ago. It's a miracle, Katie said. The nurse checked the monitor and said, I'll get the doctor. She left the room, and Ashley asked again, What happened to me? Katie asked. You don't remember. Ashley thought about it and said, I remember going to see my mom. I remember parking the car. I don't remember anything after that. Katie looked at Joe and back at Ashley. I don't know if we should be the ones telling you this. Perhaps I should call your husband. He left with your dad to bring the kids home about an hour ago. Why can't you tell me? What the hell happened? Why am I in the hospital? Well, I'm afraid I have terrible news. She looked back at Joe as if she hoped he could help her with the words and then said, You and your mom were attacked. Someone shot both of you. Ashley looked shocked and said, What? Where is she? Where's Mom? There was an awkward moment of silence. Ashley shook her head and said, No, it can't be true. Katie held Ashley's hand and said, I'm so sorry. Ashley started crying as the door opened, and the doctor came in, followed by the nurse. He saw Ashley awake and said, This is unbelievable. He walked to her bedside and said, Mrs. Taylor, how do you feel? I just learned my mother is dead. How the hell do you think I feel? He looked at Joe and Katie and then back at Ashley. I'm so sorry, he said. It was a tragedy, but we thought we lost both of you. Ashley took a deep breath and said, I'm sorry I snapped at you, doctor. I know it's not your fault. That's quite all right. I think it is good to let your anger out at a time like this. What happened? Who shot us and why? Nobody knows yet, Katie said, but we're going to find out. The doctor checked on Ashley. He checked her eyes and listened to her chest. He said, I'm going to order a few tests. In the meantime, welcome back to the land of the living. He walked out with the nurse following. Nobody asked them to leave, so Katie and Joe sat down beside Ashley again. I think John needs to know you're awake, Katie said, taking out her phone. She dialed John's number and put it on speaker. John answered and said, Hi, Katie. Is Ashley okay? Maybe we should let her answer that, Katie said, holding her phone in front of Ashley. Hi, honey. Ashley, oh my God, you're okay. I don't believe it. I was so worried. Do you know about Mom? Yes. I'm so sorry, honey. Listen, your dad is here. He'll watch the kids. I'm coming back there right now. We'll talk about everything when I get there. After they hung up, Ashley asked Joe, Can you show me that healing thing again? Joe looked at Katie, who nodded. Okay, just for a little while. Joe held her hand and concentrated. He felt Ashley from the inside like she was an extension of his body. He could feel her heart, lungs, and all her internal organs. Ashley could feel everything too. She could even feel Joe's internal organs. This is incredible, she said. I've never felt anything like this. Don't talk, Ashley. Just feel. Feel what is right and what is wrong. Concentrate, Joe said. They stayed silent for about a minute, and then Joe said, Can you feel what needs fixing? Yes, I think I do. I don't know how, but I can feel what's wrong. Now, we are going to direct your body to make repairs. Just feel. Don't talk. They stayed like that for about 15 minutes before Joe let go. I think we should stop now. Your husband will be here soon. Remember, this is our secret. I don't think I can lie to my husband, Joe. I thought that might be a problem, Joe said. You have to understand that I am different. Can you imagine what would happen to me if word got out about what I can do? Ashley thought for several seconds and said, I'll tell him God sent an angel to heal me. That's not really a lie. I guess that will work, but I'm no angel. I'm not so sure. You are the closest thing to an angel I've ever seen. He's my angel, Katie said. Get your own. They both laughed, and Ashley started crying. Katie held her hand, and Ashley said, I'm sorry. I was thinking about Mom. How can I laugh at a time like this? I'm sure your mom would be happy you are okay and would not want to see you sad. Ashley wiped tears from her eyes and said, I suppose you're right. I felt the same way only a few hours ago. I received great news moments before learning what happened to you. I felt so guilty about being happy. What was your great news? Ashley asked. I learned that I'm pregnant, Katie said. You're pregnant? That's fantastic news. Congratulations. You should be happy. Oh, and I ruined it for you. I'm so sorry. You didn't ruin anything. Don't be silly. This was certainly not your fault. The door opened, and John walked in. He saw Ashley sitting up in bed and rushed to her side. They hugged for a long moment, and then John stood up and shook Joe's hand. He then went to Katie and hugged her. I don't know how it is possible that Ashley is alive and well, but you knew. I don't know how you knew, but I can't help feeling that you two had something to do with it. That's crazy talk, Katie said. We just happened to be optimistic. John looked at Katie for a moment before turning back to Ashley. He held her hand and said, Your dad and the kids will be so happy to see you. How is Dad handling this? It's rough on him, but the burden of losing both a wife and a daughter has been lifted. I think your mom's death and your near death had brought him to a dark place, but your miracle recovery has brought him out of it. Joe interrupted and said, I think this is a good time for Katie and me to leave. It's late, and we both need to get some sleep. Of course, John said, shaking Joe's hand again. Thank you both for coming. Thank you for everything, Ashley said, stressing the word everything. John looked at her, puzzled, but said nothing. When Joe and Katie returned to the hotel, they were exhausted. They got undressed and went straight to bed. As a newlywed couple, it was common for them to make love before going to sleep, but they were both too tired for that. Last Rites continues on the next video. For more information on this book and others by this author, please visit charleshuss.com.